In this part of this subject, we are talking about the forecast of Maharashtra Assembly elections based on the prevalence of leader and the Vatawaran Shakti. It is a power of nature which is beyond the control of human beings, human minds. But it is the same power which attract and affect the human minds. So, you cannot change the Vatawaran Shakti by your wishes and ambitions, but it can happen vice versa. But it is also true that if the lakhs of people, human minds, or millions of minds of people come together, yes, there can be change in Vatawaran Shakti. So it's a very highly complex process of nature, and it is very difficult to explain for a common man because its terminology is very new, ultra-modern, and it's very related to the quantum mechanics. Now, as far as the elections are concerned, and this Shakti is concerned, I must clear first two things, that Swami Vidyananda ji had studied the effect of elections or the process of elections in the context of spirituality and ultra-modern science. He used to say that politics is a collective effect of leaders' mind, people's mind on each other, or it's the interaction between the two. He also used to mention that there are some forces in the nature and there are some laws of the nature which also govern this process or control this process. So, he had studied the laws of science and nature. There are law of causality, there is a law of compensation, there is a law of complementarity, a synchronicity process, there is a law of probability, there is a law of average. So there are at least 12 to 16 different uncertainty principle, law of determinism. So he had studied all these laws in the context of elections and the behavior of political leaders and its effect on the people's mind and their future. On the second part, he had also studied the effects of different types of, or particular 16 types of Shaktis. I mean, Shakti is it's a spiritual word, it's a Vedic word, and Swamiji had also always said that New Way stands for Newton, and Way stands for Vedas. So New Way philosophy is a very micro level synchronization or very unification of the spiritual ancient knowledge of Vedas and the ultra-modern science of quantum mechanics and Newtonian physics. So the New Age philosophy always considers all the facets and the shades and dimensions of spirituality and ultra-modern science. Now, if you go for the experimental side of this part, you will find that basically these experiments are thought experiments, as they are always concerned with the mind. And the mind is, the definition of mind in New Age philosophy is that which transcends the velocity of light is mind. So the routine definition or the current definitions of different psychologies of mind and New Age philosophy of mind is different. So in that context, if you look at the current scenario of the Maharashtra Assembly elections, my forecast is that the Vatawaran Shakti is more favorable to BJP Shiv Sena than the NCP Congress alliance. Of course, it is speedily changing, and the Vatawaran Shakti is not a consistent process. I mean, it's not a constant process. I'm sorry, but it is a consistent process. And but as far as the today's scenario is concerned, I think the BJP Shiv Sena, if they do not make wrong decisions or they do the proper sankalpa and scientific yajna, and they collectively go for their Sahakari Shakti and their Neta Shakti and their violence they could trace on or put on right track, I think they will be in power in the coming elections as far as the today's scenario is concerned. But yes, there is another part of it. If you study the wavelength side of this subject, Swamiji is the first person in the world, I claim that he could find out the wavelengths of leaders. I mean, wavelength is a word which is used very frequently in physics. And de Broglie, scientist, he had mentioned that every object in nature and maybe human had wavelengths. But there is not even a single philosophy in the world who works on the wavelengths of person. Every person, we all emit waves out of our brain, which we can see on EEG machine. And Swamiji used to say that this person, this leader has this short, medium, long wavelength, or long, medium, short wavelength. So there are a number of references he had given. So most of the leaders ask me this about what is this wavelength about and why should I know my wavelength or what it has to do with my future or success or process of any life, So it's very difficult, but Swamiji had given number of articles and mentioned and explained. But in this part of this subject, I'm not going to explain what is wavelength and what are the basis of my forecast, because that is the second part. I'm going to explain the model which I had developed to forecast the outcome of elections. But right now, I'm concluding this part. And what I have mentioned is that the BJP Shiv Sena is very close to power as far as Vatawaran Shakti results are concerned. And I think if you go for example, I will just give an example to you. I'm giving the results as for the constituency wise and even region wise. For example, I will just give an example to you about the Kannada constituency. Take it for example. Now I have given a model in which now in Kannada the current MLA is Namdev Pawar. He had got 35,951 votes in the previous election. And in current Lok Sabha election, if you look at the trend of voting in Kannada Vidhan Sabha election, the Shiv Sena has got 55,257 votes. Now, as per my results, Mr. Namdev Pawar, Neta Shakti as far as concerned, Neta Shakti is quite positive. But his Sahakari Shakti is less and is medium. And Vatawaran Shakti is medium. Now here, if I could tell you the possible candidate of this constituency, I don't think that Mr. Namdev Pawar will get a ticket, but he may be one of the contestants, and I mean he wished to be to fight it. But Harshavardhan Jadhav, Patil, Rajput, there are the contestants, others. Now, if you look at the trends of this, you'll find one more thing is that the Shiv Sena is leading here, and if they give a candidate of powerful wavelength, the chances of winning are more than 70% in this constituency. I'm just giving an example of a constituency. I'm going to explain about the 288 constituencies report on internet within the next couple of days or maybe not more than a week. It will be seen on internet. So you can see the forecast report of every constituency as per the Vatawaran Shakti and Wavelength report. Here, the SS Shiv Sena BJP has the benefit in Kannada. The track record or the trend and mindset of this constituency is very stable. But there is one more factor. Here the rebel trouble is both for, NCP, Congress and also for this BJP Sena alliance. The rebel factor is a trouble factor for them. And yes, BSP, RPI, MNS, they are also going to make some damage. The performance of MLA, current MLA, is X factor in this case. And I think the anti-incumbency factor about the current MLA will also hamper to some extent the prospectus of the Shiv Sena MLA. So that is the model. I'm going to explain its details in the next part of it. But by concluding part, as far as the wavelength is concerned, the Sena BJP's leaders' wavelength are much stronger than the ruling parties, and the Vatawaran Shakti is more favorable for the BJP Shiv Sena.